Well, in the previous video, I talked about time travel to the past, which is impossible. And now let's talk about time travel to the future, which is not only possible, but actually happens all the time to everyone. Well, first of all, you already traveled to the future, without any machine, without anything. We travel to the future at a rate of 24 hours per day. So it's not that you want to travel to the future, you want to travel to the future quickly, skipping steps. But this faster journey to the future, skipping steps does exist, is possible, and actually happens. The possibility of traveling to the future is a direct consequence of Albert Einstein's theories of relativity. The special theory from 1905 and the general theory from 1915. And the content of this theory of relativity shows that we can travel to the future. There are several ways to explain the theory of relativity. One of them is as follows. Albert Einstein replaced the concept of time and space with the concept of space-time. In other words, the more you travel through space, the less you travel through time, and vice versa as well. Of course, this is a criminally crude simplification, but to talk about traveling to the future, we have to consider that when moving at high speeds, there is a dilation of time and space. This time dilation appears in those pseudoscientific publications, like the twin paradox. One of the twins travels in a spaceship moving at a considerable fraction of the speed of light, takes a trip through space, and when he returns, he finds his twin older than himself. It's the same as saying that the twin who traveled returned to the future. So you can see that there is no paradox. None at all. It's simply a recognition of physical reality. This time dilation doesn't happen only with rockets traveling at significant fractions of the speed of light. It happens at any speed. For example, you go for a bike ride. So you go for a bike ride, spend an hour, half an hour. When you return home, you have returned to the future of your home. Trillionths of a second into the future. That's because the speed of a bicycle is practically negligible compared to the speed of light. Now, if you board a jet plane, you'll return home a little further into the future. Still. And if you're on the space station orbiting the Earth for a year, you'll return even further into the future. Then we're talking about billionths of a second, but still, it's in the future. In other words, the greater your speed and the longer you spend traveling at that speed, the more distortion there will be between your present and the present of those who stayed on Earth. This time, dilation has a formula proposed by Albert Einstein in 1905, and this formula works perfectly. Some people might say, oh, but that's just a theory. Well, first of all, the term theory is only given to a paper when it is published and supported by solid mathematics. When it's just an idea without publication, in the scientific community it's called a hypothesis. Not only was Einstein's work published and consolidated, but ever since he published Relativity in 1905, experiments have been conducted trying to prove or disprove his theory. Remember that at the time of Albert Einstein, when he published his theories, the fastest thing on the planet was the train. So it was necessary to wait until the 1970s, when there were already commercial jets and atomic clocks, with precision down to billionths of a second to prove the theory. And in fact, it was proven by analyzing the difference between the atomic clocks of those who traveled on the plane and those who stayed on Earth, precisely according to Einstein's mathematics. So, traveling to the future is a reality. Notice that in more extreme cases, by traveling at speeds close to the speed of light and spending a certain amount of time out there, you could travel and return to Earth 1,000,000 years in the future, 10 million years into the future, 100 million years into the future. There is yet another way to travel, to the future, which is by using gravitational pull from masses, planets, even black holes. This is the general theory of relativity from 1915. It works like this. The closer you are to the gravitational pull of a mass, the slower time passes for you compared to someone who is farther away from the center of mass. For example, if you are on the surface of the Earth, time passes more slowly for you than for someone who is up there. On the space station, for instance, orbiting the Earth, or on a GPS satellite. By the way, speaking of GPS, if GPS engineering doesn't take into account distortions from both gravity and speed, there will be an error in your location of up to several kilometers. I'll make a chapter about GPS, focusing on this aspect of time dilation and even with quantitative details. Well, moving on, let's teach how to travel to the future using gravity. It's easy. You leave your astronaut friend in orbit around the planet, far away from the planet, and you stay on this planet, a planet with a lot of mass. Then, when you meet your friend again on the spaceship, he is older. You have returned to the future of the spaceship. There's even a movie about it that explores this aspect. Therefore, time travel to the future is a reality. It's not only possible, it actually happens. But there's a small detail. Time travel to the future is one way only. Look at the universe wisely manifesting itself again. Imagine if you could go to the future and come back. The guy leaves, goes to the future, buys that almanac with the results of games and lotteries, and becomes a millionaire. But there's a small problem. But 1 billion people have the same idea. You'll have to split the lottery prize among 1 billion people. That would be about 10 cents for each one. But you might think, what if only a small group of people had access to the future? The chosen ones, the privileged. And who would make that selection? And who would those chosen ones be? What a disaster. That would then be the ultimate manifestation of inequality. It would be a rupture in the fabric of society of such magnitude that maybe it wouldn't even be possible to continue life on Earth. But the universe, once again, through the laws of physics, says no. You can go to the future, but you'll have to stay there. The universe knows humans. It knows how to deal with this crowd. So that's it, folks. See you later. Oh, I almost forgot. Write in the comments which year you would like to travel to in the future, knowing it's a one-way trip. And if you can, share this too. So that's it. Take care. See you next time. Let's talk about relativity and its effects on television, GPS, and our everyday lives. Bye.